so glad you could join us today. I am architect Saumya Bansal, co-founder of Insyd and InsydLabs, platforms dedicated to all things architects. Today, we are deep diving into a really important topic, scaling your architecture practice from a team of 5 to 10. We are joined by Sriram, principal architect at the FHD Group, previously known as the Fountainhead. And he's the perfect person for this conversation. Why? Because he is the one who successfully set up FHD's Bangalore office. So, who better to guide us? You know that jump from 5 to 10 is a huge step. Getting your practice off the ground is one challenge, but growing your firm from a small core team to a larger one is a completely different ballgame. Today, we are focusing on that crucial step. So if you've been running your practice for a couple of years and you feel like you're stuck with a team of 4 or 5, you're definitely in the right place. And when we talk about scaling, we don't just mean hiring more people. We are talking about expanding into new project types, maybe even new cities, and building a solid foundation for your firm's culture and identity. Here's what Sriram and I will be covering today. Managing projects from timelines and updates to keep everyone in the loop, expanding into different project types and even new locations, building a great team, and finally shaping the unique identity of your practice. Now, I know many of you were looking forward to a deep dive into tools and systems. We hear you, and we promise we'll get to that. We are planning a separate, dedicated session on that topic. So please keep an eye on the community for updates. Speaking of the community, we host these sessions every month. So if you're not already a part of it, we'd love for you to join. The link is in the chat. Now, Sriram and I will talk for about 35 minutes. And as we are chatting, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. After our conversations, we'll open it up for Q&A. You can either raise your digital hand or unmute yourself to ask your question directly, or I can read it from the chat for you. Let's get started. Hi, Sriram. Should we start?
Yeah, we can start. Hi, Saumya.
Hi. I'm so glad you are here, Sriram. All right. I'll start with the first thing. So, Sriram, in our initial talk, you mentioned that traditional processes are not enough to scale a firm. Right. So, for a new practice, what is the most important thing than setting up rigid systems?
So first of all, thank you for Insyd for giving me the opportunity. I have seen some of your earlier talks. That was really interesting. To me, I have been giving a lot of talks on the design side of architecture. What Insyd is doing is something very special that you are touching on the operations side of architecture. First and foremost, my best wishes to Insyd and thank you for giving me the opportunity. And thank you all for joining the session live also. I know it's a Diwali weekend and so it's great of you to be taking 1 hour of your time to join. Getting into the part of scaling, right? So see, any business has operations, which is, I think, the basics of having any business running in through. So does architecture. Scaling is a very different mechanism than traditional operations. Think of it as a baby that is growing, right? Most of the muscles, most of the skeleton, all are not fully developed in a baby. That is the kind of systems that you need for a firm that has to scale, because all of them are constantly evolving. When you are grown up, you have fully set muscles because the muscle knows how much weight it has to lift. The skeleton knows how tall it is, but for a baby, it is still expanding. So is scaling in any business, and so is scaling in architecture. So when I typically mean rigid systems, once you know this is your scale of the firm, this is the number of clients you are operating with, this is the projects you are working on, you can focus on building systems very specific to your scale and typology and geography of work you do. Whereas in scaling, you don't know what is the next thing that will come up. The only thing that is for sure is you are going to keep changing for a certain amount of time. So you need to be flexible in terms of all your systems instead of having a rigid system. The kind of right word for that is being like kind of agile. So, you know, in MBA, there are topics on agile systems, etc. So what that means is you should constantly evolve with your type of systems that could cater your upcoming projects, not your ongoing projects and teams. Tomorrow, you might get a new clientele who might be extremely large who might expect certain systems to work with them. You might get a new typology of a project. You might get a project in a new geography. So will your existing system accommodate that? If not, you should be like willing to let go of the system and evolve into the new system. Imagine today you are doing 10 projects, just as a number. It could be any number that you could fit in there. Just to keep your existing business running, you need almost 1.3 times the projects in future to keep the existing business running. So assuming 30% of the project might not take on, might get delayed, whatever. Just to keep your 100% continuing, to continue 10 projects, I need to hunt for 13 projects. This is just making sure the firm is operational. If you want to scale, you are looking at 1.6 times or more. If I'm doing 10 projects today, I should have access to 16 projects. And
in
that
pipeline.
is scaling. Yeah, one in the pipeline, correct.
Okay.
So that is when you have 1.6x in the pipeline, that is when you need to scale. You need to start preparing your team, you need to start preparing your space, your infrastructure, and all the systems so that you could eventually handle that 1.6. Anything between that, between on and off, you are not really scaling up. If you are getting 10% more project, keep that with the current team. Most probably with what you are going to lose in between, you will more or less balance out to the current scale. And the other aspect is understanding your core strength as an individual, especially when you are just starting out or you are a very small firm. See, different people come with different strengths. See, somebody might come with a good design sense, but they might lack marketing, which means you should be shameless in hiring support for marketing. You might have good contacts, but you might not be very good with rendering and things like that. You should be to use your strength and don't spend much of time on what you're not good at. Try to get support. You can hire a person, you can get an external agency, spend your time on what you're naturally good at, and be acceptable to take some of the things that you might need, especially when scaling. All of these are going to get bigger. See, you might not be good at marketing, but you just manage to do marketing with your current skill.
Yeah.
Let's say today you are getting 1.6x projects and you are happy to scale. That doesn't mean you need to continue getting 1.6 or 1.9x projects to maintain that 1.6, right? Which means you have to up your marketing game. If that is not your natural strength, you should be willing to bring in additional support and reinforcement in what you are not good at. This needs to go on parallelly along with the operations part of it. As a child who grows, you would remember your teeth falling down and you're getting more stronger teeth.
Right.
That's exactly how scaling a firm is. In some form, it is painful. If you want it to be enjoyable, then you will be, one of my college professors used to say this. If you are very comfortable walking, that means you are walking on a flat land. If you are walking on a ramp or steps, it will be painful. That is growth. Any kind of growth. Most businesses have understood growth in a much better way than architecture practice.
So, Sriram, I have a follow-up question on this. First of all, so where did this 1.6x number came from? Is there like a calculation behind it? Can you explain that?
Sure. So let me put it this way. If you want mathematics of it, there is something called the fertility rate. You can just go Google it.
Right.
Each person has to have 1.3 kids to keep the population even sustainable, assuming 30% of the kids die on the way. See, as a firm, when we are operating projects for a certain amount of time, we do see how many projects start. Most people, when you're starting new, you think when you have signed a project, you have got the entire value of the project. Architects charge the fee over a timeline, right? So by the time our projects, we as a firm or you as a startup will be efficient with you go through the entire cycle of the project. So which means if you are going to get, imagine you have enough team for 10 projects. If you are just getting 10 projects, imagine 2 of the projects get delayed due to some approval, 1 of the project drops because the client decides to not proceed further, whatever happens, which means you have 7 projects. And think of it, you have to pay for your employees, you have to pay for your electricity bill and all your costs, which means even to run the team that you have built for the X number of projects, you need 1.6. And between 1.3x and 1.6x is roughly where all projects don't happen simultaneously all the time.
Yeah, and they will be in different stages also.
Correct. So between a 1.3 and 1.6, you can manage with the existing team don't be very anxious to scale very soon, because if you scale,
Okay.
you need to, it's not about getting 1.66 projects today, but you need to continue getting that down the line. Because we don't believe in hiring, downsizing that,
Yeah, that makes no sense.
because it's unfair on your people also. People
Hmm.
are you to be a part of your firm or whatever. So there needs to be some consistency for the people who are in the system. So before you get the system to accommodate the extra 30%, better you be confident that you're going to get these cycle of projects going through. So that 1.6 is giving you that cushion. Tomorrow that 1.6 falls to 1.5, you will still be able to manage a team that is 1.3. This is the
Right.
general scaling principle.
Got
See,
it.
it's not about 1.6 is not a magic number like a
Yeah,
Fibonacci.
exactly. Yeah.
It's something that out of our running experience we have figured. And 1.6 is a comfortable barrier. You can do it to the 1.5, you can do it to the 1.7. 1.7 will be steep, 1.7 with 1.5 might be too risky. Eventually, when you start scaling, you will figure out what is like kind of golden ratio for you. This is a
Right.
number that we have learned for us.
Okay. And we were discussing about some areas which some people might not be very comfortable in. You said marketing. So, what are the areas one should look for when they start scaling up?
See, as a freelancer or as a fresh practitioner, you should understand two things very clearly. What is your expertise? What is your focus? Expertise is your strength. Focus is your kind of specialization. So expertise, so this is, I'm not even going to scaling yet. This is the kind of prerequisite for an operation, so that next I explain how to fit it into scaling. So your expertise could be, you have the previous experience of working in very large firm, or working in a very designer firm. You might come out from a good college. That is something that is imprinted into your DNA. So anything that you do is going to come with certain quality that is out of that expertise. It is a combination of your natural skill and how you are groomed. It could be your previous job, it could be your education system, it could be your internship. Focus is your specialization. As an architect, what do you like to do? Yeah, I like to do everything, but to do everything I need scale. To start with, what is it? Do you like to work on sustainability as a focus? Do you work on new materials? Do you work on projects of certain typologies where you have built certain type of specialty? You need an expertise and focus for a client to come to you, even in an existing practice, right? There are n number of architectural practices today. Why would somebody hire you? It's a
Right.
combination of your expertise and focus.
Focus. Yeah.
Now, for FHD as an example, our focus is not on we are like a reasonably large firm. So our focus is not on one material or one style. We have a design philosophy called lens: localization, empathy, nature, and simplicity. This is the deeper sense for a larger firm where we can plug into multiple specialities. If you are starting today, you need to have something much more narrower and clear. I am starting out with a specialization on, let's say, for example, for mud architecture, which means you are built out of the technicalities, the aesthetics, and all the learning curve that has to do with mud architecture. So when a client comes to you, they know that, okay, you come from a good college, you have worked with some good previous employers, and now you have some specialty with mud architecture. So you are the right architect for the given project. Now, when you need to scale, you need to find an outreach mechanism of these core values, right? This core expertise and focus. How do you reach out to more people? Imagine you already have 3-4 people working with you, 3-4 clients working with you. You need to find an online and an offline mechanism to reach more people. Offline mechanism could be your existing client referring you to new people. See, I worked with this person, they are very good. I think I can refer you to them. You can suggest your project to them, so on. Your finished project by itself is a brand ambassador, right? Somebody might not be referring you, but somebody might just come and ask, who designed this building?
Right.
Yeah, this is done by this architect. The person might immediately feel interested. I like being in this building, maybe connected. Some house you have built, somebody as a guest is coming to it. You have built a clubhouse, somebody is coming to the banquet hall. These are the people who are not being referred actively, but they like your product and they are coming to you, finding out who you are. The third mechanism is you can actually connect with your consultants. You might have worked with a landscape architect, you might have worked with other people. These people are going to refer you to their other clients, right? I am working with an architect who is pretty good. Why don't you work with them? This is the offline mechanism. The online mechanism could start anywhere from Instagram, LinkedIn, or anything. What I see is most people understand the online mechanism, but they don't have the expertise and focus very clear to communicate. Because if you see a lot of these new practices, they show their previous projects. Yes, that is important.
Important, yeah.
But what is it that a client is expected to get out of it? Yeah, you have done a big project. That shows that you will deliver. You will not run away halfway through. But the client would also be in connection with 3 other architects. So why would they come to you? You should have your expertise and focus very clearly communicated through the online and offline mechanism. Imagine you are in an offline mechanism, you have finished a building which has that rammed earth wall. Then you are very clear. The client who likes that building, who is not the owner of the building, also wants a house with a similar materiality, which they know that every architect in the market doesn't do. So they connect with you and they have an incentive to work with you. In an online mechanism, imagine you're posting Instagram, the photograph is beautiful, but beyond that, you are showing a good furniture and a good backdrop. That is not enough. The furniture can be bought in an IKEA. The backdrop, they can just buy a wallpaper, they can create, and you can buy a good light in your existing house.
Right.
Why should they hire you as an architect?
Yeah.
What post on an Instagram or a LinkedIn or any other social media should clearly communicate your expertise and focus. This is what this architect is good at. So there are more people who are interested in that domain that try to communicate with you. Later, when they communicate with you, there is certain clarity on what you have already done and what they want. That way, scaling will be a bit more easier at a starting stage. Scaling can go at changing a first gear to second gear is also scaling. A second gear to third gear is also scaling, and so on. Where at FHD would be maybe between third gear and fourth gear. We have seen the first gear, second gear, and third gear. Now we are on the journey towards the fourth gear. And I am happy to share some of that insights into the first gear people who are trying to go into the second gear. So the starting point, I mean, in the sense where most people are falling short is clearly establishing your expertise and focus. Then you need outreach. The second part is outreach, I explained. The third part is how do you continue or transition your core DNA as you scale? The bigger problem you see in US or any developed country, there are a lot of scale firms. Whereas in India, scaling is always difficult. People think it is because of the business, it is because of the external ecosystem. What is the problem that Indians generally face is that when you scale, people begin losing the core values of the expertise and focus. I'll give a simple example all of you will understand. You will all have a favorite chart shop where as a child you went and ate chat. Today that shop will be much bigger, but you won't have the taste and the quality that you once enjoyed. Then you're disappointed and you don't come back there anymore. So they already have an expertise and focus, but they are not able to transition when you hire new people. This is the third part of scaling, where first you should be fully believing in your expertise and focus. And that is when you scale, your new hired people, your team, your consultants should also imbibe that value. That is an internal system. That is not, it has nothing to do with your client. It has nothing to do with the world. It just has to. So in FHD, we have this system where sometimes on Monday mornings, we just present our projects to each other teams, right? I'm a certain scale of a mechanism, and I will tell you how to use it at your scale. At a team of 4 to 5 people, why don't you just communicate your previous projects each week, one of your previous project to your team? Take them out to your previous team, to your previous project. Let them see your finished project. When a lot of people join each year, each of them comes from a different educational system. Each of them comes with a different internship. You need to pass on your value system to them. Take them to your finished projects. If you see even this talk, some of my team people are just joining. That is a part of people knowing what we believe in. Constantly, whatever we do, we take our people along. That is when people learn, and tomorrow when people go and present in some other forum, they know what we believe in, what we stand for. And that is an internal process. Right now, the Indian cricket team is believing we all have to score fast. So you need to train every batsman in the 11. That's the same thing with the
Yeah.
architect. If
I have a point to add here, Sriram. This is something that I have observed. It has worked for me as well, right? So when we start the first meeting with our clients, we take 5 to 10 minutes to tell them who we are, what we do not do exactly in clear words, and what are our value system. So like you have that lens system, right? LENS. We have SNC, simplicity, niche, and customization is our, value system. And that has worked like wonders for me. Clients stop asking questions which are not meant for that particular meeting. So I am assuming that this is very important even for the internal team, but for the clients as well.
that is very true. We generally, depending on certain type of clients, would love to see our portfolio. Certain
Yeah.
type of clients like to touch our finished building. That's certain tactile sensation that we often overlook in architecture. Your
Yeah.
Instagram or your social media can bring them to the table. But once you know they have made a phone call to you, you need to follow that up by taking them to your finished project. We do have projects like Organo where some of our clients actually come and stay. They stay overnight, and we actually have a guest house there. And when we bring people, they stay. We don't have to
Nice.
verbally communicate everything. If
Yeah.
they see what we preach, I think that is the best value promise that anybody can get. So to summarize on this, to start with, you need to have a focus and expertise, which I believe all of you already have. The
Yeah.
second is to create an outreach
Value.
mechanism for that.
Yeah.
And the third is to actually imbibe that value in your team.
Yeah. I am just making my notes. All right. Okay, interesting. So the next question is on project typologies, right? So many new firms get stuck doing only one type of project. I have seen this so many times, people getting stuck with residences when they start out. So what is the first practical step for a small firm which they can take to acquire work in a completely new typology? Now, this could be institutional, hospitality, anything.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? See, because why most firms that we see starting up eventually plateauing is because they are stuck with typology and geography, right? They know to do one typology, mostly like residences, and maybe one geography, which is their hometown.
Yeah.
So one of the first lessons I learned in architecture is that it is very easy to design a space you have been in. And it needs certain level of professionalism to design a space that you have not been in. And this is the first part. This is something I learned at an undergrad level, even during picking a thesis topic. So what this means is every one of us have lived in a house. We have a memory of a house. It could be an apartment. It could be a house, a shared, whatever, some form of a house. All of us have studied in a school. All of us have studied in a college to be an architect. So at least these three of these spaces, all of us have a memory of it. As a end user, we have been the user, so we know how to design it. But the moment you have given a project outside these, it could be a hotel, it could be a 7-star hotel, it could be like a tea estate. If you have never grown up in a tea estate, you might not know the intricacies of hospitality that come in terms of operations in a tea estate. How does tea get made and all that cycle you might not know. So when you are imagine you are establishing a firm. I'll give you 3 steps on how to explore new typologies and geographies. But before that, if you have not yet set up your practice or freelance, I would strongly recommend you work and learn at least 2 to 3 typologies working in any practice. If you start your own practice the day you graduate, the biggest pitfall is that you, depending on where you did your internship, you might have a good one typology where you are good at. Most probably that would have been your thesis also. But eventually, when you are going to scale, you are going to get stuck. I have seen many of our alumni also fall into that plateau. I don't want to name them, but a set of my seniors set up a firm. Within the first 2 years, they won a lot of projects, they got awards, they got published in books. And then the third year, the firm vanished. So I know one of them very closely. When I discussed with them, he was saying that they just got bored of doing the same houses again and again, and their customers are not believing them to give a new typology. So this is what eventually they broke, and they are in architecture in different forms today. But if you are already in that practice and now you realize this, there are three different ways in which you can expand either a typology or a geography. The first one is you need to actually hire a talent, right? If you imagine you might be extremely good in doing villas and you have got an apartment that is 15 stories tall. You might have done a 3-4 story apartment in the past, but 15 story immediately brings in certain additional complexity to do. At that point, the first method you can do is you can actually hire somebody who has the work expertise to do that typology. Depending on the scale of your firm and the scale of the experience of the person you are hiring, he might be a senior architect, or you might even have to hire a partner. If you know that you are going to get 10 more projects of that 15 story more, then you need a partner, somebody who focus on the typology and train people on that typology. So somebody who is already trained and has expertise in that typology, you can hire them, which is the first method. The second method, that you can actually partner with another firm. If you eventually want to train your people through that same system, you have a project, but you don't have the specific expertise for that project, then you can hire a firm. This is very common when you do in different geographies. See, imagine you are based out of Bangalore. You got a project in Kolkata, let's say for an example. It is, you are in a dilemma whether to drop the project or to take it on. See if you can partner with a firm in Kolkata, a firm of your scale, your size, but they know the Kolkata geography well, they know the building codes well. You have certain design expertise, they bring the Kolkata knowledge. Can you team up with them? Let's say you are getting a hospitality project, the example I gave, like a tea estate, let's say, for example. Find a firm who has done a tea estate project before. So they will have all the learnings that they can pass on. And for them, you are bringing in that project. So you can team up. Of course, for the given project, it will cut down your profit margin, but it will train you towards your future projects. So this project is more of an investment for you to take on more projects of the typology. The third method is that you can actually attract a client based on a specific kind of value proposition, the same expertise and focus that I said before. Let's say you are a firm who are specializing in doing mud wall, just as an example. So you have done villas with mud wall before. One of the person visiting the villa calls you up and says he wants to do a tea estate, but he's interested in the brick wall and the villa part of the mud architecture part of it. So under this situation, you are being hired for a specific know-how where you have already proven the client. So the third method is slightly more difficult than 1 and 2. Can you convince the client to go on a journey with you? You know, you have not done a villa, you have not done a hospitality before, but you also give them a good fee. You will get the mud wall perfectly done. Can you travel with the client? Travel, I don't mean the physical travel. Travel, I mean as a journey in the project. Can you travel with the client, understand how he makes tea, spend time with them, go through his previous estate, what is it that he's done, any projects that he likes. You learn through the process and deliver the project. This might not be like if you have done a house before, someone wants an IT park, definitely this method won't work. So this will work when you are stepping up one step at a time, which is also very common because everybody has to do their first hotel. Everybody has to do their first. So if you have already proven in your expertise and the client is ready to travel with you, you can learn some of the typology part of it if it is only one step over. So between these three methods, you can get to know either a new typology or a new geography. If as FHD, over time, we have spread across typologies and across geographies. But if you are starting now, either pick whether you want to expand typology or geography, do it one at a time. That will make your life easier. Because both are steep learning curves. If you want to learn typologies and Bangalore is your base, try to pitch on a school in Bangalore. Try to pitch on a small weekend getaway in Nandi Hills, something like that in and around Bangalore, so that you can spread on typologies. And later you can decide whether you want to go geography or the opposite. Let's say you are so good in designing private residence, you want to focus on that. Bangalore will only build so many private residences per year, and they are divided among Bangalore architects. So you need a bigger funnel. You might want a pitch for a private villa in Kochi, a private villa in Andhra Pradesh, or one in Chennai. Then in the initial project, you might have to team up with somebody. And eventually, once you have a project, that is going to attract more clients from that region to come to you.
Okay, understood. All right, we have almost about 20 minutes left. I think I should open the Q&A part now if someone has any questions. If anyone has any questions, they can mute themselves and ask the questions directly. Okay. Okay. I think, okay, no problem. Take your time. I have more questions. I will continue with them then. All right, then. So you stressed that having the right people is also a key to growth. So what is the most important quality you look for when making your first few hires?
When you typically hire people for an existing firm, it might be a 5 people firm or a 50 people firm. When you hire for an existing people, two general qualities you look for, that same expertise and focus that I touched earlier. You need people with skills, right, that match your expertise. That is a bare minimum that anybody is going to look at. When you are looking at scaling aggressively, you also need people who take a sense of ownership. That is very important. And at some level, also building leaders. If apart from scaling, if you want your people to grow up into leadership and get the firm more stabilized, you need people who take responsibility and ownership towards a project. This is something that we try to inculcate right from day one when I hire people. Even when I built a team in the Hyderabad office, which was fully established, or what building here in Bangalore. Both cases, I try to hire people when they have a sense of ownership towards the project. So what I mean by that is, people might know the software that you use or might not use. You can teach them a software. You can teach them certain level of skills can be polished, etc. But a sense of ownership is something that comes with the personality. When I see people who have this sense of ownership in whatever they do, I generally go and hire them. If I go attend an event and I see that organizer, a student who is very passionate, takes the responsibility of all the things, I generally go and hire that student if they are interested to work with us. This is very important in the sense that when you are scaling up, you are going to be traveling. You are going to be visiting more clients. You might not be able to spend as much time, but the projects that you are working on, the people who are actually working on should own the project. And even in a bigger firm, when we have several levels of people overlooking the work, finally, the person who is actually working on the project controls the quality of the design and the output. So the person should be believing that they are working for themselves. And even as a person, if you ask somebody,
Sriram?
right from the time when I started as a fresh architect, one of the things I'm trying to look at myself is also to own the project. Whether I am a junior architect or even an intern, I have done that. And that's both important at a employee growth level and a company growth level. So having people who own the project, and this cannot be trained. Either people have it or you can push them towards it. But this is a personality trait. If people are only interested in, okay, I like to design, but I will design a bit in every project, but at the end of the day, not caring about the project, you cannot build a team around that people. And fortunately, we have been building people who are very passionate about owning their project. So even if one day I am not in office and they still try to look at what the project needs, what is the next step that the project needs. And this is the type of people that is very important, especially when you scale up that practice.
Okay, all right. Okay. Another question, how should a young firm decide between taking one large project versus several smaller ones?
See, this is a dilemma for all firms, small, scaling, big, everything.
Yeah.
But it hurts you in scaling phase very badly. See, both have pros and cons. Let's say you need a revenue of let's say 10 lakhs, for example. You need a revenue of 10 lakhs this year, a firm running. You have a choice to either take a single project that gives you 10 lakhs, or you have a choice to take one 5 lakh project, one 3 lakh project, one 2 lakh project. This is the dilemma that most firms have in different values. Now, the larger project is going to save you time in traveling and operations, because no matter what the project is, you'll have to travel to the project. And so the larger project will save you, instead of traveling to 3 projects, instead of meeting 3 different clients, you can focus all your time on one client. And in Bangalore, with the traffic, each time you reduce travel, you are actually saving time.
Saving time, yeah.
And the second advantage in the larger project is you will be able to spend more time on the project. So that when you naturally spend more time on the project, independent of the scale, you generally tend to do better work as an architect. Because you are focused, you are thinking more amount of time on that one project, the one problem. So your solution will be more refined. Whereas the shorter project has a different set of advantage. You are like diversifying the eggs in 3 different cases. You have a 5 lakh project, you have a 3 lakh project, you have a 2 lakh project. Imagine for whatever reason, the 3 lakh project gets stalled in between. For whatever fault, might not be yours, might not be even the client. We have seen so many scenarios in which a project gets held. For whatever reason, project gets held. So that way, your 5 lakh project and 2 lakh project are still operational.
Yeah.
It still gives you 2 months of finances to find another 3 lakh project. So you are not left wanting when that, if there is a risk. Whereas if you take a 10 lakh project and the 10 lakh project halts for any reason, your entire team, your time and your salaries and your costs will all be stuck. So this is constantly a dilemma on there is no correct answer, but it's always about balancing between the two. You need a right mix. So what I mean by balancing is, if you have a choice to take 5 projects of 2 lakh worth, or one project 5 lakh, one project 3 lakh, one project 2 lakh, take the 5-3. That has a balance of a medium-sized project and 2 small projects. So that has a diversity. It will also allow you to mix people between. Also, imagine the project is going on, there's no issues, it's going on track. The 10 lakh project will require site visit at one particular time. It will require design at one particular time and all the drawings at one particular time. Whereas 5, 3 and 2, when the 5 is in design, the 3 might require drawings. The 2 might have site visit. Allows you to mix and match skill set within your team also better when there is some level of mix. But if there is too much mix, then you will only be traveling between the projects. You will not be in a position to spend valuable time with any of the project or the client. So to us, the better answer is somewhere in between, not a single super large project, not too many small projects. You'll have to balance between that. So that when one goes or one project completes, you have time to get in a next project and still occupy your team with the other projects.
Okay, all right. Now talking about tools a bit. So in our initial talk, you had suggested that basic tools like WhatsApp and email are often enough for a practice, right? So at what point should a small firm actually invest in advanced project management tools or any kind of software?
So to what I told you on that day on phone, I'll just also add a set of an Office, such as a Word, PowerPoint, and Excel from whichever brand you can get, right? A good phone call, a WhatsApp, and this probably, if you are joining this video, you already know how to do a video call. That's free of cost. This is sufficient to run a decent practice. More because each of these tools allows you to do certain aspect better. And for example, actually communicating is more important than a tool of communication. When I worked in US, we often think American companies are very high tech, right? I worked in the Silicon Valley. So when I worked there, one of the biggest things I learned is going and meeting somebody has a bigger impact than sending them a message over any platform. And people in US understand this. It is like sometimes we get over enthusiastic with the tools. Tools are important. When you where when there are 2-3 things happen, tools come into play. Like when you scale beyond a point where you actually don't have the physical time to meet each of your customer all the time, that is when you need some platform that enables you to reach to your customer periodically. But still you have to once in a while go physically meet, and it cannot, no tool can replace you. Similarly, when it comes to a project management tools, etc., for most projects, you just need a basic Excel sheet. I'll tell you there are 3 things that you need to look at in a business. You need to look at your fees, which is the money. You need to look at the time, the calendar time. I'm starting a project this year. In 2 years, I need to finish the project. That is a calendar time. And the third is managing one's resource. Resources you can measure. The easiest way to measure resources, number of man hours. Imagine you have one employee with you. He will work 8 hours a day. So he gives you 8 man hours per day. That is 40 man hours a week. You can multiply that per month, per year, subtract some holidays. Just be a little practical when you do this. So you only need to track these 3 things in any business to be profitable. So you get a project today. So what we do is something called as that water flow chart, right? If my project says 10 lakh, I'm going to get in the project. You are not going to get 10 lakh in a single payment. You are going to get 10. You should understand the life cycle of the project. Let's say the project, for example, is a 2-year project. You need to divide that 10 lakhs over the 2 years. And you might get every quarter, you might get 1.5 lakhs. That will eventually add up to 2 lakhs over the time. There will also be a time delay between you asking for the fees and the client paying back, which might generally be roughly, let's say, 30 to 60 days. So add that also. This is the way the money is going to be distributed within that project to you. So if every quarter, let's say I'm going to make 1.5 lakhs, what is the level of work I need to deliver for that project in every quarter? How many people have to work on it? See, if you are going to get money quarterly, if you are going to allocate all your man hours within the first quarter, you still cannot pay them for it because the client is not going to give you the 10 lakhs in the first quarter. So you need to understand the balance between what is the timeline of the project, what is the payment schedule of the project, and how you distribute man hours. This can be done with an Excel sheet. There is one 3 parameters. And there is no automation in this understanding this because you will have to manually tweak in. Like this quarter, I am not getting money means I need another project that should be paying me for this quarter. Only then I can pay my salaries. If this quarter, imagine I am getting my money, but my man hours are free, people don't have work, then probably you should be pitching for a competition project or making use of the time. That is also important. This is a very simple Excel sheet can do. You need a PowerPoint to go present your project to a customer. A basic PowerPoint, which you can also export it into a PDF. To send an email, if you want to physically present, you are going to present. Otherwise, you are going to communicate it in an email. A Word file, when there are certain agreements, you have to get signature, you have to maintain a contract. You just need to type it out in a Word file. Maintain a basic format, whatever you. If you don't know what is a basic format to start with, just go and check American Institute of Architects. They have all the formats. You just have to Indianize that a little bit, which is very straightforward. They have the wordings for you. You just have to Indianize. See, for example, they have snow, we don't have snow. That is very obvious, right? So you just take that base, Indianize it a little, and you have a basic contract ready. Keep the contract, you need a word. So this is the ecosystem. And WhatsApp, even today we have WhatsApp groups for different projects, right? So that we bring the consultant, we bring the client. If say I'm meeting a client physically every month, then I make sure that there is a WhatsApp communication in the group at every week level, so that the client knows this is the work that's currently going on. These are the people involved in the work. So all the stakeholders in the project are on the same page. For that, we ensure WhatsApp. This is the basic setup that is required. Going back to when you need advanced systems, one, you are scaling significantly larger, then you need certain apps and platforms that will do this work for you. When you are working with a client who is extremely large, when you're working with a corporate client, then there will be certain protocols that are in place, right? You have to communicate the files only through certain like kind of a cloud service, which means you should also be enrolled in that. They will track the project progress through their project management system. So you should also be enrolled in that, plugging in your data into their system. So only when a client specifically needs certain kind of methodology that is in place, especially with large corporate clients. You will have to be a part of that system so that your output and their inputs can communicate with each other. That is when they will also make payment based on these updates. So that is how they track. So certain times we get into certain platforms to work, sometimes even Microsoft Teams. See, certain clients work with Google, certain clients work with Microsoft. So based on that, we need a platform that can work with the client's platform. That is important project. So that down the project, that will actually charge for the cost by itself. The last point is also platforms cost you money as a new practice. Getting your licensed software for design, getting the hardware with the graphics card and all of that, these are going to charge you a lot of money. And these also have a payback period. So when you are still within the payback period of some of your other softwares, which are very critical for your basic practice, you cannot afford to spend money on other platforms, even though they might be comparatively lower cost, but your core business is this. If you have to do a rendering, you need a rendering software and a rendering hardware. You cannot outsource that. Maybe at your scale, you might not be able to afford an outsourced. But imagine you have certain tax forms to do. You can hire a chartered accountant who is doing other businesses also. You can pay him a one-time fee to annually file your GST. You don't need a full-time software to do that. So you should know that which are the platforms that are core to your survival, which are the platforms that are good to have. And you should always make sure there is certain percentage of your expenses allocated to that kind of survival platforms. So as a firm, we are very high tech when it comes to our design tools. We have most of the advanced tools that are used globally today. But when it comes to project management, a customer is not hiring you for using advanced project management tool, but for getting the work done. So depending on a client, we choose the project management. If it's a very corporate client, we work on their system, constantly updating our timelines to them where they can open it anytime and see. They can see our input as a part of their overall project ecosystem. Okay, this particular project, where is FHD in? They will be able to see that. Unless and otherwise it's a client like that, most of the other clients, we try to keep it simple. We try to keep it one-on-one. We try to maintain that Excel sheet. But Excel sheet, there is a way to use Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
If you're using Excel sheet as a table, then you're not using Excel sheet. Using Excel sheet with the formula and all the tools and plugins that Excel comes in, you only have an office, email, and WhatsApp. This is sufficient for most firms that are starting today.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience? We'll give another minute.
Yeah.
By the way, it was nicely put, Sriram. So probably maybe sometime in future, we can see how to use the Excel also. It's important because many people don't know how to use that Excel file to keep their accounts.
Our colleges don't focus on the
operations, right?
Much.
Yeah.
We had one subject called architectural practice, which was filled with ethics. But typically, how do you, so this is like kind of 101 of a business, I think should be there in an BR curriculum.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
The basics, right? You don't need to know advanced economics. You just need to know what is profit, what is loss, how before tax, after tax, what is it? This much anybody should know so that you want to run even a freelance business. Like the first question I ask people is, do you have a GST number? Right?
Yeah.
Because it is not that people don't want to pay tax. It's most people don't know how to do it.
How to do it.
This is a learning curve by itself. But the funny part is most of this can be done with an Excel sheet. And yeah, the tax part, you do need an accountant. If you cannot afford a full-time accountant, you need to work with an accountant. Maybe once a month, he just checks your books and keeps the record. You don't have to hire him full-time. There are many accountants who do for small businesses.
Yeah.
You can work with one of them, but setting it up professionally is very important. If you have a cousin for whom you are doing a project, that is not business. You are doing the cousin a favor, more than a business. So the real business means you need to set it up professionally so that tomorrow when you scale, you have the systems ready. See, the moment you start scaling, there will be a lot of government formalities coming up. Like the government wants your GST number, they want your employee database, they want your salary certificate. At that time, you'll be blinking, okay, what are all these?
Right.
See, these are things, because that's why when we specifically set the title, we set it up at 5 to 10. So because for a 1 to 5, there are certain business basics that you need to get into. And once you set it up once, that is going to stay for a very long time. As long as you keep scaling, because these numbers keep coming in, like constantly, they might ask your previous tax return. Imagine you are applying for a big project. Forget government, right? You're applying for a big project, right? Any large project, they will ask your company's last 3 years performance. And forget your performance is big or not. Do you at least have your performance that you can share it to somebody, right? This year I made so much revenue. This year I made so much revenue. This year I made so much revenue. Do you have a basic Excel sheet? You can export it into a PDF, compile it, put a cover page. You can send it to that client. So the client knows you are a small firm. You don't have the auditor language, but you have the data that they ask. And the data is more important than the format at any given point. From 15 to a super large client, you have a comfortable time for you to scale. 5 to 15 is where most people get stuck. Because to set up a 5 business, you need to take care of the basics of the business. And you need to also be exciting as a professional that somebody wants to invest, trusting you that you will deliver the project.
All right, guys, we'll wrap it up. You can always reach out to Sriram on LinkedIn. Is that fine, Sriram?
Yeah, I was about to say it in my closing statement. See, there are a lot of students, sometimes people who just follow up with me with some very simple questions and things. So feel free to reach me and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My full name is Sriram Ramakrishnan. Probably I'll ask Insyd to post that. Post a tag to me on LinkedIn. So if
I'll do that.
Go to the Insyd poster. Right. Thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you so much. Sriram, thank you so much for your insights with us. Okay, some people are happy. Okay, it was incredibly valuable. And a big thank you for everyone who has joined in. Feel free to join the community. We have a special dedicated Q&A group. Maybe I can add Sriram there if you guys want to ask questions directly. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Sriram.